I think we've talked about the pre-license process. If someone wants a license, they submit an application, we come out and do an inspection, and they have to show their complete requirements with program of veterinary care, feeding, watering, shelter, shade, the whole 9 yards that are in our standards. Once they have a license, once they've qualified and paid their fee, they can get automatic annual renewal. All they have to do is send in their annual fee and form, and we have no way to say no. They could be a terrible facility and be extremely out of compliance. We can't automatically deny their renewal. We have to issue it. Next.
Excuse me, do you, like on the exhibitors or breeders, do you expect them to keep a daily log on each animal that they have?
It is not a requirement in our regulations to keep a daily log. We strongly recommend it because if there's a problem, say with veterinary care, and there's no log, they can tell us they treated the animal, but they got nothing to show that they actually did. So it's a very beneficial practice, yes. Yes.
I had a friend that had an animal, and our USDA inspector told her to keep a daily log on all the animals. This is in California. And she's got about 57 animals. And a daily log on everything is getting taken when we type in the animals, and it's not necessary. Why does it have to be daily? If you have all the paperwork, you know what you do.
Again, it's not an absolute requirement that they do it, but it is a very beneficial, and we've seen it at a variety of facilities, to keep a log on all the animals. You can tell if a problem occurred, the animal started not looking right a week ago, you got that on a piece of paper. A week later, you can see it's either better or not better. So.
I mark it on my calendar, so I get when you're in the calendar, and something I have on the calendar. The daily log is a whole bunch of animals. It's taking a couple of hours every day. You're getting to the animals.
Well, I think there's a variety of ways to meet, even though it's not a requirement, do a daily log. I mean, we've seen dozens of different ways in zoos who all do it, obviously on every animal. Exactly, but the daily log doesn't necessarily have to be one sheet of paper on every animal you've got. What you may do for a daily log is list the problems that you've seen that day on certain animals. Or, let's talk after. Okay. We do inspections based on risk. We've got a risk-based inspection system, and what this means is that facilities that are having problems or that we have many complaints on or have a past compliance history, we're going to inspect more frequently, maybe 3, 4, maybe more times than that per year. Facilities that have a good compliance history, if they demonstrate that long enough, we may not come by but every 2 years. Question?
What about the facilities that have a good history every time you come out, but somebody keeps complaining and you keep coming out? And then you get told, but you have to come out because they got called on. But there's never been a non-compliance, but you keep coming out. At what point does that end? At what point is that harassment?
It's a difficult question. We are basically ordered by Congress to enforce the act. If we get a complaint, we've got to be able to demonstrate that either it's valid or not. If we've been to your facility and the complaint is about something that we saw within recent weeks, we shouldn't have to go again. On the other hand, if it's not something that we looked at the last time we were there, or it's been more than a few weeks, we may have to come back. We may hopefully just go look at a specific or focused area and not do a complete total facility inspection again. I understand it's a difficult situation for you. It's a difficult situation for us. We would rather spend our resources going to places that we believe we're more likely to find problems at. But if we get a public complaint, we are in a position of having to be able to say we checked it out and found it to be valid or invalid.
What about the ones you find non-compliances but don't do much about? And then you keep complaining and you still don't do much about?
And I would need examples on that.
There's like a lot of non-compliances, there's never been a fine or action against them. And they're still allowed to operate. What about them?
I think I'll get to that, okay? Is it a crime to submit an invalid complaint? No, not that I'm aware of.
If you continuously get a non-compliance complaint and it seems to be within a one-person, two-person spectrum that continuously does it, would you not do a role reversal type of thing
That's what we typically do, because we do get that. We get people that, for whatever reason, are on one particular facility, like glue. And when we get numbers of complaints from those people, we tend to respond back that, yes, we were out there 2 months ago, this was not a problem, we'll check it again in our next routine inspection. That's not always the case, but yes, we do get that, and we try to, I mean, it's to our benefit as well. We have limited resources. We'd rather not be going out checking invalid complaint after invalid complaint. So we try to use common sense.
Do you see anywhere in the near future hiring on more inspectors? Because you have to admit the ratio of facilities to inspectors is not a good ratio.
I admit that.
They're falling through the cracks.
Yeah, it's-
Just in the budgeting, is that going to be something in the near future that's going to take place?
We have absolutely no control over that. Our budget is assigned by Congress, and if Congress is convinced that we need more inspectors, then we will hire them. They will give us the money for it, and we'll hire them. So, yeah.
A lot of these inspections that you said are related. In other words, in Yucca Valley, I'm the mayor of that particular facility, of that incorporated area. We have animal control, our local animal control. And when there's a violation that is designated, animal control normally comes in first, regardless of what it might be. It's all connected. And if you have one of the exotic naturally fishing game is notified, and then USDA is notified. So it's generally the local agency that takes the first step in any violation of care of an animal, whether it be a horse, a dog, a cow, a goat, or whatever it might be. There's a claim comes in. Local animal control initiates the first complaint, and then they notify the appropriate agencies. If you have a USDA license, or if you have a fish and game license in California, those people are notified through the local animal control. So there you
Right.
got, you know, and they're the ones right at the scene.
Right, exactly. Yes?
I've heard rumors that there has been some recent tightening up on who is being granted special Class C licenses. You know, in other words, that they're having to show some minimum exhibiting, you know, some minimum amount of exhibiting or something like that. Is this tightening up really occurring?
Don't know of any tightening up, no. We've been checking for years to make sure that people with exotics, that they or their employees have appropriate experience to provide care for those animals.
But you haven't been otherwise not granting licenses?
No,
Okay.
no.
What do you guys decide is proper experience or something?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that. The question is, how do we determine what's appropriate experience? That's one of the most difficult things to do. You can throw out a number, 1 year of experience with big cats. Well, what does that mean? You know, were they feeding the cats and watering the cats? Or were they actually doing had some responsibility for the care? So we try to, especially with the big cats and other dangerous animals, what we call dangerous animals, we try to get a reference from them for somebody they worked for that we can talk to and say, what did this person do? Do you think they know what they're doing? But there is no engineering standard that we've been able to come up with, or that we know that anybody else has been able to come up with, to say, you check this off and you're good to go.
I think the state of Florida requires 1,000 hours on
Hands-on, do they define hands-on?
Yes,
Yes.
and they're real serious too.
Be a good thing for us to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The state of Massachusetts has that type of, before they give out a permit, they need 3 letters from veterinarians, zoological people, before you even get your state permit.
Yes.
There was a recent form you sent out asking about direct contact. Is there some agenda going on with regards to trying to define and redefine as to a certain age group, or with regards to tigers?
Wait,
I've seen this form come out. Is that something?
What form?
Information gathering of some.
We were information gathering just on any incidents that have occurred over the last, I don't remember the period, I wasn't in charge of this information gathering, incidents that occurred with regard to photo shoots.
Was direct contact.
Right. Is there some agenda on direct contact that the USDA is instrumental on, that they're trying to redefine it, or maybe limit it to a certain degree of age group or weight or class, or
Not at this point, no.
so it's not being considered at all?
I wouldn't say it's not being considered at all, but we'll have to look at once we get all the information in. to see. If we do anything like that, it'll have to be a new or proposed rule and go through the public comment period as a regulation, which is not a quick process.
And I heard they were gonna address that. In the
Yeah,
last
that's what I
6
was hearing
months.
too.
In the next 6 months, they were gonna start to work on something like that? A proposal?
What?
I heard that in the next 6 months, they were gonna try to work on that type of proposal with direct contact.
What you need to understand is if we start working on it in the next 6 months, it'll be,
2 years or so.
well, it's been taking 5 or 6 years for us to get through the process. We have to go through all sorts of clearances, and every change that we make has now been classified as a critical change, so we can't get any quick clearances. So making a new regulation in that manner takes years and years. Now, if we get a court ruling or a change in the law from Congress, that can happen faster. I think I'm told I'm out of time.
If you guys hold your questions, so he can complete his presentation. Is that all right?
Sure.
All right.
I'll try to go quickly. Talked about the risk-based inspection system, which is what we base our frequency on. The inspectors have a minimum frequency that they come up with for each facility. Doesn't mean they can't go more often. Our inspections, except for pre-license inspections, are unannounced. So you shouldn't know when your inspector comes by. I'm sure they always come by at the best possible time. We don't expect facilities to be perfect. There's no way they can be perfect. If we wanted to look at every facility and find cobwebs on the food container, whatever, I'm sure we could. What we look for, if we're going to do anything as far as enforcement action goes, is a serious violation, something having a negative impact on the animal, or repeat or chronic problems of the same kind, which indicate to us the facility isn't being taken care of. Warren? Our enforcement action is limited. We can do one of 3 things. We have to go through the court process to do it. We can issue a civil penalty, which is a monetary fine. We can issue a suspension or revocation, which is permanent disqualification from having a license. We have to go through the Administrative Procedure Act to do that. That's to give all American citizens due process. What this means is we have to gather evidence. We do that through a formal investigation. If evidence is there of serious violations, we'll file charges. We request a hearing. You can just go on down the list. There's all sorts of responses. The lawyers are involved. The hearing happens probably about a year to year and a half after the violations occurred. So if there's no appeals, we probably come out with a decision if we're going expediently in about a year and a half. So it's not a fast process. It is set up to provide people due process. The one thing that we can do more rapidly is confiscations. We have the authority to confiscate, and this is based on a state of unrelieved suffering due to Animal Welfare Act violations. And we do confiscations. We do have to give the person a formal notification. We've seen this problem. You've got 12, 24, 48 hours to correct it. You come back. If it's not corrected, we'll seize the animals. If we seize animals, we have 3 options under the law for how we can place them. We can place them with a licensee or registrant in good standing. We can place them with someone or some other facility that actually may not be licensed with us but meets those minimum standards, is in good standing, or we can euthanize the animals. Because our enforcement process is so slow, we have tried to change a lot of our focus the last year or two and focus more on education, because I think that's how a more rapid change can be brought about for most people, especially those people that want to change. And I think several of you have probably been to our Big Cat Symposia. We've done 4 of those so far. We're going to do several more in other parts of the country and try to hit more folks. Try to come to industry meetings like this. We have just hired a big cat specialist. She'll be starting with us in a couple of weeks, Dr. Lori Gage, zoo veterinarian from California. We've also got publications and other pamphlets that we hand out. They're also available on our website. Wow, this won't be fast. The main issues for us right now, and probably most of them are the same issues that are for Phoenix Exotics, or at least part of the membership, is handling and direct contact. There continues to be people that take adult tigers out to photo shoots, and people get hurt, which puts the cat at risk. Many of the cats wind up dead because this happens. There continues to be a problem with people that want to acquire these cats, do acquire them, and then Unqualified can mean don't have the resources, don't have the knowledge, don't have the background, or don't have the desire to take the proper care of these cats. Some of these are our licensees, and we have to try to take care of those. As everybody knows, there's a shortage of facilities to place cats, and what we've seen, this is especially true of tigers and bears. Some of the other exotic cats, it's much easier to find a facility that will readily take these animals, but tigers, there doesn't seem to be, you're lucky if you can find a place to put tigers right now. Obviously, the amendment to the Lacey Act, which we've already talked about, is a big impact for all private owners. And again, we are just one exemption to that. We're not writing the regulations. We're not involved in writing the regulations. It's U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And my understanding is they're going to try to get those out as quickly as possible. And hopefully that will provide some clarification on what's going to be an accredited sanctuary. What are the small details that go along with this thing. So, and then the last issue for us again is we're going to try to continue and build on our education efforts, and hopefully with more big cat meetings and if we identify other needs for that, or if you guys can identify other education needs that you'd like to hear from us, we'll try to take care of that and do some of that for you. Just a plug for our website. You can get almost every publication we have, facility lists, order forms. You can get a copy of the regs and standards. Our website has a lot of stuff on it. That's the website address up there. And I think that's it.
I am not an owner, but I sell to owners, I sell to law enforcement agencies, I sell to a lot of the groups that everybody's working together. Well, they're not working together. I hear a lot of frustrations on all sides, from the private owners who don't want the regulations because it's a pain in the ass. But I see the need for it, okay? That's probably negative to hear, but I see the need. We don't need the puppy mill type situation in big cat. Right. We don't. You are doing the right thing by coming to me. I also hear a lot of law enforcement agencies that their frustrations in trying to get, people that are in the puppy mill type situation with the cat, that the judges aren't working together. We need to get all these agencies together. Is there a way to facilitate that? Because there is a need, not just with you, because you have a limited amount of scope. We need everybody involved in order to solve this situation.
And I agree completely with that. I think what's difficult is there are a whole bunch of federal rules, ethics concerns, regulations that we have to follow, which prevents us from doing certain types of get-togethers, let's call them. If the request comes from an industry group or from private owners that this needs to be done, that's the best way to get something to happen.
How can we facilitate that? These are people that are responsible. These are people that want to care for these animals. These are people that want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. We need to facilitate more of this type of informational gathering and to help whatever they need to do. We need more information to be able to facilitate the kind of group gathering that you can't provide. How do you go about doing that to make this solution
I can give you suggestions. And first realize I'm not a DC type. Okay? I'm not politically connected, but I can tell you the politics of it are that the way to get that done is to contact the heads of the agencies involved and say, we want to sit down and get this done. People have done that with us. We have representatives sitting with some of their meetings now, okay, on a regular basis. You can also work through your senators and representatives in your states and say, this is an important issue. We need to sit down with USDA, Fish and Wildlife Service, our state fish and game department. We need to all sit at the same table and work together to address this problem.
Are you willing to do that, to help it?
I guess I wasn't clear. That's not something we can call for. Otherwise, we've got to call a federal advisory committee and there's all sorts of rules for federal advisory committees, but if it's done by the citizens or the private industry,
Well, that's what these people are, right?
exactly, and then we can participate if it's their meeting, and we can be there at the table.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. I just need to, I mean, because I hear the frustrations on all sides. I hear your frustration, I hear animal control's frustration. They don't want to deal with the situations because they're not trained. We all need to work together to solve the problem.
Right.
And if these people can do it, then these people are the ones who need to know how.
Right.
And I know Lori Gage, you've got a great person there.
Thanks.
How many Class C exhibitor licenses are there in the state?
I think there was 2,400.
You should write a letter to 2,400 people.
Yeah, 2,400.
That's what you guys need to do. You need to really work together. You need to call the meetings. You need to be your own advocate, and you need to work together to do it. Otherwise, this is not going to be solved to your liking.
See, she sells the products
I
to
sell
what I
products.
need.
I am not an owner.
Yeah,
Okay?
see, I don't
I'm
want to
not.
buy no products
I
from her
hear
because I can't get my
frustrations
rep
on
time.
every side. And I will tell you, there is frustrations on every side, and there's foundations for those frustrations on every side.
I don't think you necessarily need to be an owner to get involved. You're
I
seeing the
know.
problem, be part of the solution.
Well, I'm
gonna
trying to
buy
be
I'm
part
gonna
of
buy
the
a
solution
stick
by
from
giving
today,
the
but
right
it's not
product.
going to be used.
Yeah, but too, with private owners are part of the solution as well as the problem.
That's what
But I
this
know
meeting's
there's-
all about. That's why we're all here.
I
Okay?
understand, but this, I'm trying to get
Phoenix is doing
answers.
something about it. That's what this meeting's all about.
That's all, I'm here too.
Okay, good.
I'm concerned.
And we're glad you're here. We're glad everyone's here.
He may not be the politician.
Yeah, he's not the
but I
right
think what
one.
Judy is trying to find
We
out.
gotta
is
write
we're here
again.
seeking a
You're-
possible
Keep
answer,
writing.
and
He's got part of the solution.
do you have part of the
California
solution to say,
covered
you come
by
to
them.
us, and we can talk to you. And I think that's basically what Judy's
I'm
trying
trying
to
to say,
ask.
listen to everybody, get everybody involved. Call these people, find out what their concerns are. You're not gonna solve the problem until you solve his concern too. You know, if you, Joe Blow, has a cat, wants a cat, you need to make sure that you get the USDA involved.
You don't
You
have
need
to
your,
have the USDA involved.
okay, okay, if you want the zoo, okay?
You don't
You
have
need,
to have the USDA for that.
okay, you
As
need,
a private
so,
owner, you have
We have to
to
be the eyes of
keep an animal
the
safe.
people out there that are doing bad.
no,
All right, let's get ready to wrap this thing. I would like to thank Dr. Gibbons for a very informative talk. As a private practitioner, I deal with the private owner, the sanctuary, the zoos. I deal with everybody, and I deal with USDA. I'm USDA accredited. I'm telling you, your friend is USDA. If you don't believe that, you have a lot of studying to get into. They're on your side. They're here to help you. Utilize their information. Talk to them because they're your friend. Next speaker up on the list is going to be Brian Werner. Brian runs a facility called involving tiger conservation in Texas. Again, I'd like to introduce to you Brian Werner.
Thank you. It's really a great opportunity, I think, to bring everybody together because we got such a diversification taking place out here. And, you know, there's a lot of common ground, but then there's so much that's uncommon that it's difficult for us, and often we are misperceived or, you know, not understood. And so I wanted to touch base. I'm going to get moving relatively quick. I want to give you a little bit of information in these packets that I performed putting together. If you've got a question, please turn it over on mine and just put the number that you want to reference and the question that might fall under, or if it's something in general, and at the end we'll answer it. Tiger Missing Link Foundation. It's a nonprofit 501c3 that I chartered in 1995. It operates Tiger Creek Wildlife Refuge in Tyler, Texas. Tiger Link is headquartered in Washington, D.C., and then we have an outreach in Ohio, an educational outreach. It is an Ohio charter initially. It also has a field office in Texas at the Wildlife Refuge at Tiger Creek. Tiger Creek, simply put, is a sanctuary or a rescue facility and educational. We went ahead and got a USDA license so that we could exhibit to the general public. We do that on site. I think we have one exception, and that was to stop a major university from purchasing the tiger. They agreed that if we would come out twice a year. So we do take one cat off site, and it's not something that we like to do a lot of, but we do make exceptions for it with regards to that one situation. Great Cats of Texas is a developed project. It's under development. And if you go on down to page 2 there, you'll see greatcats.org, Great Cats in Crisis. It's an international consortium that I developed or formed. And it is basically a network, because what I found is in the accredited sanctuaries, there's a need that's not being addressed with big cats specifically. You know, you have a list of sanctuaries that are accredited, and what works for a pig sanctuary doesn't work at a tiger facility. We're identifying some of those needs, and Great Cats in Crisis is under development. Right now we have 6 organizations, including Tiger Links, as part of that consortium. We have a facility in South Africa and one in Guam. We have 38 cats in Texas, a 39th coming in this year. And then in the entire consortium, we have about 240 cats represented. These are big cats. Most of them are going to be tigers and lions. There are a couple of cougars and leopards. The other thing there that I mentioned is sponsor, and I put websites there so you can go to those, because there's going to be a lot of information there that you might better facilitate. Great Cat Resorts is a for-profit corporation that I've developed, and it is a separate entity from these charities and nonprofits. It has nothing to do with animals, other than that it creates a funding mechanism. And what it is basically is a for-profit project that I'm building out. I'm seeking funding for to build multiple sites, and it's just like basically it's a themed resort, and it involves the animals, but the animals belong under the nonprofit, and they're paid a management or stipend fee for facilitating the resort's guests. So that way at no time do the animals enter into a for-profit arrangement, but they can still benefit from the financial arrangement, because one of the biggest problems I'm identifying is that we have a financial crisis going on. Money's probably a bigger issue than the big cat problem, because if we had funding, these facilities had funding, then they could take in these surplus big cats, and we wouldn't have that word floating around out there. And it wouldn't be impacting the responsible people that have these animals when the irresponsible ones throw off their animals. So it's really come down to a financial issue. And so I created this project, been working on it about 8 years. I kind of went semi-public with it about a year and a half ago, 2 years. And it's just a way of generating revenue for big cats. And in that, it partners with these nonprofits and provides them. The average facility takes about $3 to $5 million to build out to do it properly. That will house between 20 and 80 cats. And it takes about $1.5 million to operate effectively, and 12 employees. I'm very structured on business plans and marketing plans, and so a lot of people say, well, that's a lot of money, but you've got to understand, when you run a gross receipt, usually most businesses, and this is a business, whether we are for-profit or non-profit, it is still a business, and you have to run it like a business. You still have accountants, you have lawyers, you have expenses. The only advantage as a nonprofit, you're not paying taxes, and you can run around and claim holier than thou. But it's really a business, and it needs to be approached as that. I think that's part of the structure, is that a lot of these sanctuaries fall by the wayside, so to speak. They don't think of themselves as being in commercial activity. They're still scared of the word commercial activity. But it is a business, and it requires the skills that a business requires. And when you run a business, you're going to run anywhere, if you're making a profit, most businesses run between 12 and 25% profit margin. That means after you've gone out and you've fundraised and you've paid all your employees and everything else, by the time you get done, you've got between 12 and up to 25% left on the table. And then that money can go towards build out or additional operations or new programs or whatever. And so I created Great Cat Resorts as a way to try to address that. If I'm successful in leveraging the funding, then I think you'll see more of that come place. Maybe one day we'll hold one of these meetings at one of those facilities, and that'd be a great opportunity for everybody. I'm going to enter into the brief overview. I've been trying to define private ownership for a long time. And I've come up with a real simple way to approach it. Private sector is any entity, irregardless of whether you're a charter or not, whether incorporated or not, any entity that is not part of the government and is not managed by the government. You have AZA accredited zoos, such as Dallas-Fort Worth Zoo. The Dallas Zoo is managed by the city budget. It would be a government zoo. And then you have Caldwell Zoo in Tyler, Texas, which is managed by the Caldwell Foundation, and it is a private, nonprofit entity, and it is thus not a government entity, so it is private ownership. When we start splitting hairs, you really get down to two things. You're either private sector or you're government. And it's just that simple. People ask me, well, are you for private ownership? Well, yeah, because I'm private sector. I'm not part of the government. In other words, I don't have the benefit of taxing people and receiving that money to pay for my facility and operations. Cincinnati Zoo just recently went government. They tax, they receive tax. Now, some of them, they can receive the tax and still not be managed by the city, so I would still classify them as private ownership. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're incorporated, you're an individual in business, and I'm approaching it from business perspective. You can run a business as a DBA, you can run it under your own name, you can incorporate it, you can apply for a 501c3 status and get nonprofit status. You can charter it as an S Corp, a C Corp, doesn't matter. You can charter it as a nonprofit. They're still all incorporated. So every sanctuary that's incorporated is in business, whether they want to admit it or not. They're incorporated. I believe in just cutting to the chase on it. And what it is trying to define what they are. And if you go back to the corporate charters of the state that they're chartered in, you'll see that they're chartered, and under that it'll have the nonprofit charter, or you have the election to make a C corporation, or you can elect as an S Corp. There's other charters too. You could be a limited liability partnership, an LLP. So, you know, there's some other charters that I'm not mentioning, but I'm just trying to give you a general guise on this. But I broke it down into either your government or your private sector. There is no difference. They don't differentiate in the law between a private individual owner and a nonprofit sanctuary or a C corporation like Disney or the Mirage, probably an LLP, Limited Liability Protection Corporation. It's just not there judicially. There's no difference. So there's nothing to separate you guys other than your segments of where you operate. And I broke that into conservation, education, rescue, research, and individual animal caretakers. You can be 2 of these, 3 of these, or all 5. These are just areas that you could work in. Some people may be focusing on conservation. We do, in the genetic research. Conservation's long-term. It's 20, 30, 40 years out. You're not going to see the results. It's not something you can say, Brian, what are you doing for conservation? Come back in 30 years, let's look what I did today, because I don't have all those answers in front of me because it's a long-term process. It takes time to put out and see the results. If the tiger's still alive, and I still have tigers, and private sector still has tigers, then we can look at what we did for conservation. Education, you may just be exhibiting, maybe entertaining, whatever it is, it's education. I put exhibitors there too. I don't care if you're the circus, the Mirage, you can be whatever you want to be. Sanctuary that's out doing programs, you're either educating or you're not. There is some education benefit that comes with all exhibiting, one degree or another. Some of them may not be right, may not be politically correct, but there's some exhibiting going on, there's education. Rescue. I'm sure, how many private owners in here, individuals that aren't chartered, incorporated, that have rescued an animal? Can I see hands? Okay. Now, I have a nonprofit that's rescued. So there's no difference in that type of work. Either you're doing it or you're not. Research, it could be evasive or non-evasive. I prefer non-evasive, but we do work in that area. That kind of falls in line with the genetic management, the DNA testing that I'm doing or have been doing. And then individual animal caretaker. That's the only area that I don't really perform in as a corporation that other people who are not incorporated would. So you break it down and you really get to the specifics of it. These are 5 areas. Most sanctuaries probably fixate into rescue and education both. Some of them may do some volunteer work, like with regards to the National Institutes of Health. They may contact a sanctuary and ask for hair samples. Maybe they're doing a genetic study. Well, guess what? You just got involved in research. Not all research is bad. People, not all research is bad. Animal rights activists sensationalize this stuff, and they take it out and they say the word research, and they turn research into something bad. Sanctuary is becoming a bad term. That's why I use the word refuge. I just sounded horrible to me. But, you know, not all research is negative. There's good research that's non-invasive to the animal. Do you know if you collect blood samples during a routine physical and you're doing breakdowns on their blood samples and looking at them, you're doing some research. Some people may be sitting back taking notes and just writing on the notepad about the animal and its behavior. You're doing some research. So don't let these things get taken out of perspective of what they really are. And if there's anything in there that I did not touch on that would fit another segment, please feel free to email me anytime. I'm very accessible. You can also call me at that number. It's on the front sheet. I will return all calls if you get voicemail. The breeding versus management. I want to talk real quick about breeding versus the management. Anybody can breed an animal. You take 2 cats, dogs, whatever, throw them in a pen, and you allow them to breed. That's not going to be very effective. Management involves long-term assessments. It involves looking at why we're doing it, where we're going to go with the surplus, if there is any, to prevent surplus. Is the animal going to have cradle-to-grave care? You cannot legislate responsibility, and it seems to be real popular to try to do that. Either people are responsible or they're not. Somebody once said, if you want something done, find somebody who's busy to do it. Because somebody that's busy is responsible and will get it done. Management involves more than one facility. There's a big problem there. A lot of places think, oh, I'm breeding, I'm saving the tiger, I'm managing. I'm sorry, you're not. You cannot manage tigers in conservation aspects with one facility. I also wanted to touch on the genetic management, and the reason I want to do that, in 1982 the AZA implemented the Tiger Species Survival Plan. The SSP was implemented, the first happened to be tiger. That SSP, they took in these samples of animals, and I'm going to kind of show you a demonstration here. All these tigers on this side, it's like going in a restaurant and picking up people and saying, well, you know, you and her both have blonde hair, you look alike, let's put you in, over here and you're this subspecies. And they made assumptions that there was no relationship. But the fact is, this could be your sister, and no one knows. What the AZA did with your SSP was they implemented off of what they knew genetically. It's just like doing family tracings, geopolitical background. And they traced these animals back to their wild ancestral places and wrote them on paper. Well, first off, it was men writing on the paper. Whereas with genetics, when it's observed, it is whatever it is. There's no interpretation other than having to define what it is in the genetic code. And what I'm trying to say here without confusion is that it's not left up to somebody saying it's this subspecies or it's that. The captive management with genetics is really a different approach that has not been implemented. Zoos base it off geopolitical background. I'm trying to convince the world that it needs to be based on genetics, because there's no room for error if it's based on genetics, other than the interpretation of genetic code, which can be verified by more than one party. But when you start looking at the old records of the SSP, they're back to the stud books, and it's a lot of human error. In other words, John Doe, the broker, drives up to the zoo, and the zoo director comes out and says, "We want a Siberian tiger." And he goes in there and he looks, and he finds the biggest one back there, the fuzziest tiger, pulls it out and says, "Here's your Siberian tiger." Well, was it a Siberian tiger? That's what they wrote it down as. So the zoos, on their SSP, made the assumption that it was. They also made another assumption in that these animals that they had in their population, representing you guys for a moment, assuming that you were all tigers, they assumed that they were all unrelated. They had to start with something, and something's better than nothing. But now I've been trying to convince them, now that they've made that decision, let's go back and check it now that we have the technology. Let's see if these genetic relationships are the same through the mitochondrial DNA. And it's a little technical, but what I'm trying to say is, let's re-verify that you made the right decision. If you didn't, let's straighten our course so we can bring it back on scope. You know, if the ship got off course. So, you know, you start getting into that, and what we're trying to do is technology will change and convince them. What we found in the tigers in the genetic study, real quick here, and I'll get into this, is the microsatellites on the tiger distribution of subspecies. And by the way, anything in tiger can be related to any other feline. I just picked tiger because we have so many and I'm so versed in them. Of all the subspecies, there are a total of 102 markers that are shared among the 5 subspecies remaining. In other words, all 5 subspecies of tigers, there's 102 primers or sequences or markers that they share that's common. Doesn't differentiate between each. And then there are a additional 19, there are only 19 signature alleles that dictate the difference between them. So they're very closely related. What that means is that these tigers evolved as individual subspecies within less than 10,000 years. So it's very, very insignificant difference between these Siberians and Bengals. There's only 19 codes differentiating. So we're trying to, you know, there's a lot of work in here. And this gets into the conservation that I was speaking of. It's going to take years, decades to figure out. That doesn't make it any less valuable. It needs to be done. I want to move on quickly to the next topic. I'll be glad to talk about the rest of this stuff either at the end or off to hours or whatever. Great cat habitat design. We got into captive management. There's some tips that I want to try to bring forth. Anybody out here using chain link with big cats? Okay. If you're not, I would probably recommend keeping your holes within 2 inches diameter. That way the cats can't reach through. I had one lady tell me, well, if you're worried about the cats reaching through, then you need to get new help. No, I'm sorry. Mrs. Festus, that's not correct. Your people have to be able to care for these animals in captivity. They have to be able to go up next to those walls and do it, and make their rounds. 2-inch hole, cat cannot get his paw through if it's a big cat. Yes, the cougars and leopards can. Another thing on that chain link, you can extend the life if you come 2 foot up and put a rub rail. That's a rail on the outside, allows them to push on that chain link and it'll extend the life and keep it from bowing out like you've been seeing with chain link facilities. If you're using cattle panels, please know that those welded wire panels will break. I'll prove it to you. Lay a roll of 9-gauge chain link down your driveway and lay one of them down and drive over both. You come back, the wire will still be intact. The cattle panel will be busted in pieces. There's been a lot of incidents where cats have busted those. Maybe working for you right now, but it will break. Transportation needs, try to back up a recovery for yourself. You know, if there's a fire, a tornado, some way to evacuate your animals. If you can't get a trailer, you don't own one, find a neighbor that does. Get you a roll cage if you have a big cat. I don't care if you leash walk it like a poodle dog. Get you a roll cage. because when the cat's scared, there's a fire or something going down, you need to be able to load that cat, and you're not going to be able to leash walk him. He's going to be different when that's going on. They pick up on things just like everybody else. Try to back up, even if it's with a rental place for a trailer. You know, it could be if you live on the Gulf Coast and a hurricane's coming in. There's going to be a time where you need to move that animal, not just to the vet, but to get it out safe, you know, get in a safe place. Shifting your animals. One of the things, and I know, you know, we all like to have direct contact, but shifting an animal, make sure you have a way to shift it so that if you're sick, injured, hurt, incapacitated, or on vacation or otherwise, you can have someone go in there and do that, care for that animal without having to have a direct contact with it. Feeding, I want to touch real quick, and I'm going to blend that with dietary. How many have lions? Now, I'm not a veterinarian, but I want to tell you something we found in Texas A&M. Majority of the lions, how many are feeding lions a diet that's bought off the shelf? Just chicken and beef, processed, you know, but raw. You're having a problem with your lions. Lions are scavengers. They like vitamin A, mostly found in the intestines and liver and organ meat. And if you're not giving them that when they're developing, and I'm talking for the first 2-3 years of their life, you're going to see a narrowing of the spinal cord and the paralysis develop. They're going to go become paralyzed, they'll start dropping, and they got to be put down. Usually hits them within the first 2 to 3 years. If you have adult lions, you know, find a source for rabbits, something. They need that whole carcass. It really helps them. Or get some organ meat. And, you know, don't overdo it. You don't want to give them 20 pounds of organ meat every day and nothing else. You mix it, diversify it. Throw about 4 or 5 pounds of organ meat, 8 or 10 pounds of the rest. Feed them 10 to 12 pounds, 15 depending on the size. They'll be fine. I hope you're fasting your animals 1 out of 3 days or so, because it allows them amino acids to build up and break down the bones and any other matter, and the digestive tract starts moving. But the lions with that vitamin A, there's a big issue. I'm seeing a lot of captive lions. Even though my specialty is tigers, I'm seeing a lot of lions that are having to be put down because they just go paralyzed. Wanted to talk a little bit about direct contact on related safety. You want to make sure you try to work with an animal. If you're working with an animal, there's a time that's really good, and that's after they've eaten, and it's about an hour or 2 after you fed them. They're not as aggressive, and their behavior's stabled. It's easier to work them on a hot day than a cold day. You get a cold day in there, they're going to pop you around. You get I love a fat, full tiger on a hot day. Medical. I put medical and dental. I don't know who you're using, but I've got a guy on my website, and if you email me, he's done everything from elephants to tigers. And folks, if you're not giving your cats dental, you're doing them an injustice. I don't care who you are. If you've got a cat that's 3 years of age or older and you haven't provided it dental care, it needs it. You may not think so, but let me knock it down and show you. And I'll show you. I know it's scary to knock down your pets and all that, but they still need to have their dental care. Domator is a real good way to knock them down without worrying about some of these seizure issues and such. I'm sure the doc over here can back up some of this stuff, but get dental care. I've seen sanctuaries that have been in place for 25, 30, 40 years, whatever, since the time of God, whatever, and they have no dental care, or they call a human dentist out. There's a whole different procedure with that pulp. Instead of removing that canine, you cut it off flush when they have to have a root canal on a canine. You don't pull the whole tooth because it's so important to their bone structure. That's why you see some of these lions running around, or tigers, and they got their tongue just hanging out, and that helps them to control that. Keeps them from biting their tongue when they're trying to eat as well. So there's a very strict protocol there with regards to dental that's not being adhered to, and it needs to be tightened up. And it's in all of private sector and a lot of government organizations too. Long-term planning and liability. I'm going to hit these two real quick. Liability. If you don't have insurance, try to get it. Get a homeowner's policy or something. Back it up. You don't want to lose your possessions if something goes wrong. And you think it won't happen, but if you ever leave and your cat's there without someone to watch him, and you're working, and somebody decides they want to climb your fence, providing you have a perimeter fence, and they get hurt, you're responsible. But ultimately, the cat's going to sacrifice the most. Long-term planning, make a will. Who do you want your cat to go to? And try to leave a little insurance policy to help make that possible. I get calls all the time. My mother passed away, my father's too old, and I'm not taking care of this tiger. And no, I'm not giving you any money because she left it all to me. Well, make a will if you really care about your animals, and do it with your domestics or whatever. I don't care what you've got. Make some prearrangement. Public relations, I want to get on real quick. One of the things I noticed on the Phoenix list is a website, and I know they're working on it, but I didn't see any press kit. Somebody go on the internet, do a search, find press kit, come out with frequent asked questions, position statement, mission statement, put it all together with some photos. Newspapers will go through and pick things up when they need them and use them. Also, I've seen a lot of private sector, individual animal owners especially. They get a call and it's, oh, the media wants to talk to a private owner. I don't want to talk to nobody. I just want to hide in the woods. Let me tell you something. You've got to be forthcoming. When you meet with these reporters, sit down with them and educate them first. Remember, they don't know jack, and so then they call the sanctuary place, and then they get whatever we put out, and they assume that since you didn't raise that issue, you must not be in support of this or that or whatever, and these assumptions get written, and then it impacts you. Be forthcoming. If you have a situation, somebody gets hurt, get up front. Get up in front of the cameras, get up in front of the media and address the issue. You can't hide it, you can't duck it. You're not going to be able to avoid it. That's crisis management. Design yourself a crisis management protocol. It's just a one-page thing. What happens if my kid gets hurt by a tiger or lion or whatever I have? Or what happens if my neighbor's kid breaks in and gets hurt? What are you going to do? Come up with the structure. And whatever you do, don't avoid the media. Did you guys see the situation with the Tidwell case? Come out and present yourself decent. Look, if I'd have walked up here and I'd had my shirt open and, and you're in front of a camera, it really comes across negative. You need to put yourself together, take a moment, put your makeup on, guys. Get in front of the camera and talk to them. Be more forthcoming. Exchange information, ideas. I think that the public relations is probably one of the biggest hindrances that's hitting private ownership or private sector. And it really comes down to marketing, So, 1 minute. Remember, with liberty and freedom come rights. Through those rights come responsibilities. And through those responsibilities, you've got to be accountable. If you're not willing to do all that, you need to get rid of your animals. Thank you very much.
Next speaker up is going to be Vernon Weir. Vernon is the director of the American Sanctuary Association. Don't go out that door.
Well, that's all right. I thought I was in after, but that's okay. I'll go next. That's all right.
Vernon's going to talk to us again. He is a director of the American Sanctuary Association, and his topic is going to be, where do we go from here? Vernon Weir.
Well, a lot of you folks I remember from last year, familiar faces, and a lot of new folks. This is certainly a lot larger than last year. One of the benefits of coming here to speak is every year I get to get attacked by Carolus vestus. Some of you that may not know the inside meaning of that, but anyway, she attacked me again this year for coming here to speak. But our board of directors, I guess everybody knows I work for the the American Sanctuary Association, which is a coalition of about 35 or 36 sanctuaries across the country. Anyway, our board fully supports our efforts to speak anywhere, anytime, for any place, any reason. So anyway, and then I should say that Susanna and I have had a good communicative relationship going back about 6 years, and so she twisted my arm last year and had a good time, so here I am again this year. For those that don't know, let me just briefly explain. We have an accrediting process for member sanctuaries where they fill out an application. We take a look at their board structure, their veterinary records, their permits, their financial statement, bylaws, articles, all kinds of things. And then we also do site visits to verify quality care and housing. But the reason, that's not why I'm here. The reason I'm here is to talk really more about the rescue situation. I get phone calls and emails all year long for animals. I get calls from the USDA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Animal Control, SPCAs, national groups, individual activists, other sanctuaries. I mean, they come in all the time, and we deal with all species. So we're not talking about just big cats. I mean, I'm involved in placing everything from exotic birds to foxes and coyotes, primates, lots of primates, cows, chickens, you name it. We're involved. We don't get involved in dogs and domestic cats. But all the other species we do get involved. So this is just one segment of what we are involved in. Last year when I was here at the meeting, I gave you some figures. And for those who weren't here last year, these are figures that have to do with just big cats. And these are only places that we have been, that involve somebody has contacted us to ask for help. There are other rescue cases out there that we know about. We can't do anything about them. As you all know, sanctuaries are just stuffed to the gills with big cats. And so there's a lot of them that I hear about, but I don't do anything about because I haven't got any place to go with them. So these are only the figures I gave last year and this year are only the ones that are coming to us that somebody has contacted us about. Again, I said this is not small cats, it's only big cats, tigers, lions, cougars mostly lions, tigers, and mostly tigers. Cougars would be second, lions, leopards. And let's see. Okay, now, last year, well, actually, I gave you a 2-year figure last year. I compiled, that would have been 2001 and 2002. There were 246 big cats that we were asked to place. Of those, 227 were coming from USDA Class A, B, or C licensees. Almost all of them, most of those Class C. 19 of them were coming from private owners that for one reason or another couldn't keep their animals anymore. And you all know the reasons. You've heard the excuses or the legal problems. People move, they die, all kinds of things. This year the figures are pretty much similar. We got about 160 calls, or 160 big cats to place. Of those 160, 137 came from USDA Class A, B, and C facilities, mostly C. 17 came from private owners, recognizing Brian's definition here, which is a little bit different. But anyway, And then there were 6 unknown. What happens is sometimes I get a phone call or an email from somebody that'll say they've got a couple of cats and need to be placed, and then they never respond. I call them back or email them, and I never hear from them. Now, these figures do include 2 really big ones. And when I was here last year, I told you about some places that I knew that were coming up that were in trouble and that I expected very soon. One just happened. I didn't want to say at that time. One was John Weinhardt with Tiger Rescue in Colton. I knew that was coming to a head. At that time, I thought there was only maybe 30 or 40, but as it turned out, there were about 60 there, not including the dead ones. The live ones, there were about 60. That also includes Noah's Land. Brian, you know, I never did get an exact, where is Brian? Oh, I never really did get an exact, really good, hard figure on Noah's Land, but I think there were about 35 big cats there, weren't there?
I got a call on 37, and some lions had disappeared off the planet. I think maybe they were sold or something. I know that 8 of them are at my place.
Yeah, okay. Now, in most of these cases, I can't do anything anymore. It used to be first couple of years, you know, I could, but when I get these kinds of cases, I don't know what to do. I have no place to send them. I can deal with some numbers, and we have placed some of these. Another place that I knew was headed for trouble last year was Lorenzo Pearson in Ohio, and he hasn't asked for any assistance as far as I know, and I'm not really sure exactly what's going on there. Like last year, I know of places in Minnesota, Missouri, and Alabama that, again, it's just a matter of time, I would say. Maybe 1 or 2 of them will work their way out of it. But the point is, on any given day, you could call me, and I've got some big cats for you. I don't think there's a day goes by that I don't have some cats that I'm trying to find a place to place. Now, we're going to be doing a new survey. I'm going to be contacting not only our own sanctuaries, but many other sanctuaries in this country. And I want to pin down exactly, out of the animals that they have in their possession, where they came from. So if a sanctuary has 60 big cats, I'd like to know how many of them came from private owners, how many came from Class C exhibitors, and so forth and so on. And when I have those figures ready, I'll send them out to you. I'll get a hold of Susanna or Jeannie or somebody and get those figures to you, because I'm never afraid to share facts. Facts are facts, and you know, I will never intentionally slant the facts in order to make a case. I feel that the facts speak for themselves. Now, the theme for this conference is solutions, and we're all concerned about what can we do. I know that you people out there are not real happy about this surplus problem either. It not only gives you bad press, but there's an awful lot of animals out there that we're dealing with, and we have no control over where a lot of them are going, or if they end up being killed. I don't use the term euthanasia for killing healthy animals, because all you can do to a healthy animal is kill them. You can't euthanize them by my way of thinking. And you don't want to see the abuse. You know, in Colton, California, we had dead animals. Up in Minnesota here just recently, there's a case where they went in and found dead big cats. And I'm sure none of you want to see that either. So that part, I'm sure we can all agree with, regardless of what side of the fence we're on. Let's see here. The other thing is, I want to make this clear, because I hear comments from time to time. You know, in no case will our association ever recommend that animals be taken away from anybody in this room, as long as you're taking good care of your animals, as long as you are providing them with good care and good facilities. What we're wanting to do is stop, I mean, first of all, think about the ridiculousness of that. I mean, if I can't place the animals I've got now, what am I gonna do if I've got all your animals? There's no way in the world. We don't wanna see any of these animals die. What we're trying to do is get a handle on the surplus problem here and the abuse problem. I mean, you know, you've read about it in the paper. Animals kept in basements, big cats kept in basements in disgusting conditions, and I know none of you want to see that happen either. Now, I did want to just briefly mention, I also did want to say, every now and then I still see somebody will forward me something on the Phoenix list where the Shambhala Act is brought up. Like I said last year, that bill's been dead for like 4 years. I mean, forget it. That's not a viable bill. It is not, there are no plans to reintroduce it. And if anything, what that did was make private ownership legal with certain restrictions. There's nothing in there that made, was advocated a total ban on private ownership. But anyway, as I say, that's old news. Now, I wanted to just briefly say on the Captive Wildlife Safety Act, this was an HSUS bill. It was written by attorneys from HSUS and IFAW, and it was pushed through in Washington, D.C. Only time will tell whether it's going to do any good on controlling the surplus problem, but unless you are breeding and dealing and selling across state lines, I don't think it will affect a single person in this room. And actually, Larry, where are you? Yeah, Larry, now I'm not an attorney, but the way I understand is the Captive Wildlife Safety Act prevents interstate commerce. Commerce being the key word here. That means selling and trading. So if you live in Ohio and you own a tiger and you're moving to Missouri where it's legal to own a tiger, I don't think there's anything in the law that says that you can't move to Missouri with your tiger. This has only to do with interstate commerce. And since A, B, and C licensees are exempt, as well as other things, I really don't, I mean, again, unless you're breeding and selling across state lines, it may have an effect on you, but again, it won't have an effect unless you're selling to individuals. But just wanted to say, I'm not an attorney, so don't bank on that, but that's at least my opinion. One thing that I do think that you should be cognizant of that bill is the fact that it passed the House and Senate with not one single no vote, 100%. Now what that tells you is that people in legislatures throughout this country, and I feel it not just at the federal level, but the state level, are, because of cases that get widespread publicity, you know, maybe Siegfried and Roy did have something to do with it. Somebody asked me that question. Maybe. I don't know. The New York Tiger apartment case, maybe. That might have had something to do with it. But it's like I said last year, I think that this kind of stuff is coming all over the country because legislators are getting tired of hearing about this issue. And if you can't come up with, and I know there's some people in the room, I remember from last year, that are, I think it would be called libertarians, but people who are kind of opposed to any kind of laws and legislation. If you take that approach, I think that the governments, the state and federal governments, are going to just cram regulations down your throat. So like I said to the Phoenix people last year, I think it would be time for you to come up with some sort of a proposal that would be acceptable to the legislatures across this country, rather than just sitting around letting it happen. But anyway, the point is, current laws have failed. We're still getting this huge surplus. There's no end in sight. We're getting lots of abuse cases with dead and dying animals everywhere. So if current laws are not working, And obviously, the problem is coming from the A, B, and C licensees, mostly the C licensees. That's where the numbers are coming from. And that's where these horrible abuse cases are coming from, and dead animals laying around. What's the solution? If that's where the problem is, and current laws are not working, and that's why I kind of wish the USDA guy was still here. In the long term, I've thought about this, and to tell you the truth, I really don't have any real good ideas. In the long term, I think the USDA should strengthen their regulations on who they allow to get an A, B, or C license. Take a look at their financial stability. Take a look at their plans. Watch and see that they don't get in over their head or that they have too many animals. Maybe require more background and training and experience. In the long run, maybe that would make a difference. That's the best idea that I've been able to come up with. In the short run, I don't have any ideas, sad to say. I don't know how to get control. And if you guys got some ideas, I'd love to hear them. Not just today, but anytime, on how we can get these Class A, B, and C places under control. Now, I can tell you the USDA agents right now today, I've been told this, I don't want to say who told me this because they said it in confidence, they would close down all sorts of places right now if they had a place to go with these tigers and lions and leopards. One agent said that he's got about 80 right now, that 80 animals represented in places that he would shut down immediately if he had a place to go with them. They would have shut down that Colton facility sooner, but they looked the other way because what are they going to do? Where are they going to send all these cats? So I can't completely blame the USDA. They know this is going on out there, but what are the alternatives? They don't want to go in there and kill 60 cats. We don't want them to go in there and kill 60 cats. We know there's a lot of places that need to be shut down and their animals seized, but we're sitting there saying we can't help you. There's no place to go. The sanctuaries are stuffed. You know, we've got sanctuaries with 50, 60, 75, 100 big cats. How many of you got, Jonathan, down there?
A bunch.
You know, Brian.
Vernon, I'd just like to make a comment that, number one, possibly ASA or USDA, whoever, should take a new look at the private responsible owner and see if there's an opportunity for them to approach them to work with. But also because what you're saying is so important, what I'd like to do is make a very brief question period, because I know there's a few people in the audience that would like to ask you some things while you're up there, and I don't have to cut you off.
Okay. What you were saying, yes. Actually, it was something we talked about a week and a half ago. We would like to come up with another, I guess you would call a second-tier system, that if our sanctuaries are full, and they are, that we could come up with some secondary placements. And you know, I've used secondary placements. I placed a couple of small cats with Glenda up in Idaho, for example. I'm sure I could come up with lots of. I've placed some animals with zoos, and you know, zoos that I've visited and have been to that are small zoos, and they're not AZA, but they have nice facilities. Sometimes we have to do that, but it is a lot more work because it's not, if you got 60, 2 here, 2 there, 2 wherever, and there's always the big bottom line problem, transportation. We don't have the money to be able to transport 40 tigers 15 different places. That's expensive, lots of money. So the logistics of transporting 2 here, 2 there are just almost impossible. So that's one of the hindrances. But we are looking at what we would call second tier. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that you know, I read, if you're on the Phoenix Exotics discussion list, I had somebody forward me a few of the comments on there about the Ohio Cub. Hi, Larry. The Ohio thing? Oh, okay. I wanted to, of course, first of all, it's like I told Larry earlier, he was wanting to know if I knew what was going on. I said, you know, I tell you the truth, I mean, this is something I think about maybe once every 4 or 5 days. This is not a major concern to us. This was really much more simpler than what it's been made out to be. Let me just give you the the reason that I don't, if you want to talk about it, it doesn't matter to me, but, you know, a month, 2 months from now, it isn't going to matter. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to remember a year from now. This is sort of like a non-issue, but to us anyway. But okay, so I guess that's really pretty much it. I wanted to update you on the figures and tell you, you know, that we're in complete agreement with you with regards to where the problem lies here. It's with in statistics, the numbers are the A, B, and C's, particularly the C licensees. That's where the problems are coming from. There's more of them out there this year. I can almost guarantee you, if you bring me back next year, I'm going to have these same figures. It's going to be like 150 or more big cats, no place to go. It's going to happen this year. I know some of the places that it's going to happen too. So, okay, thank you very much.
If you're following along on our the program we have, you will notice that I'm not following along on the program. Okay? I skipped over Jonathan Kraft. I apologize for that. I didn't. It was definitely unintentional. Come here, Vernon. Okay, anyway, the next speaker is going to be Jonathan Kraft, founder of the Keepers of the Wild Sanctuary. Jonathan Kraft.
Well, I'm kind of glad that Vernon went ahead of me, solved a lot of my problems here. Thanks, Vernon. First, I'd like to thank, of course, the Phoenix Exotic Wildlife Association for inviting me. I remember the first time that I was exposed to this association was about a year ago, and I think it was in Pahrump. And boy, did I come in with my hackles up, let me tell you. Private ownership of big cats, taboo. And of course, I've been slightly adjusted since then. In any event, you to be commended, of course, for policing your own industry. But I did want to follow up on what Vernon said and Brian said earlier about the industry. Of course, we're Keepers of the Wild. We're a nonprofit animal sanctuary, a 501c3. And we've been around for quite a few years. And let me tell you something. If you don't know about hard work, get into sanctuary business. My God, you work your butt off all the time. And it's a relentless pursuit for looking for money all the time. So in any event, I started out in show business in Las Vegas, and I figured, well, I'll get into the sanctuary business. This should be a piece of cake. This is a slam dunk, boy. All these big fancy hotels and a lot of big cat lovers out there and so on and so forth. So the first grant writing I did was to all of the hotels in Vegas. I came up with $100 from Caesar's Palace. That was it. Okay? I just want you to be aware of that. Matter of fact, I quoted that in our Smithsonian Magazine article. It's been a huge struggle, obviously, and anybody in here that has a sanctuary or runs a sanctuary knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I decided to call this particular address as the business of sanctuary. And could I have some water, please? Oh, yes. Thank you. And Brian summed it up real nice, because this is the business of sanctuary. Sanctuary is just that. It is a business, whether it is nonprofit or for-profit. If you don't run it as a business, you're running into serious problems. And by the way, that is the problem with a lot of sanctuaries that have no money. They're all filled to capacity, and very, very difficult for them to get any money. So what I'd like to start with is, first of all, is to give you a little bit of an idea what I as a sanctuary, or we as a sanctuary, go through. First of all, is I've got about, I don't know, probably about 120, 130 animals on my desk. I have a real big desk. These are, of course, very unfortunate animals that are looking for a home. And just like the Colton facility and Corpus Christi Zoo just closed down, you start getting large numbers of cats that need to be placed all at one time. Is virtually impossible unless you build a new facility for them. And so consequently, we do have a tremendous amount of animals out there that are constantly looking for a home. The exotic animal trade, by the way, in the United States is a billion-dollar industry. Matter of fact, it's somewhere near $15 billion annually. It is the largest illegal trade next to drugs and guns. I just wanted you to be aware of that. It's kind of ironic, but it is true. The largest, first of all, is there's about 4,700 licensed breeders. Now, the USDA tells me 4,000. Well, this is information that I got from the USDA. So, in any event, there's 4,700 licensed breeders out there. That it does not include any of the illegal breeders, of course. There is about 28 websites dedicated to tiger purchase only. There's over 1,000 websites currently about be able to buy an exotic of all sorts. And yet the United States Department of Agriculture cannot tell me how many of those are actual large cat breeders. Today they did have a figure for us, but when we try to get information, they keep telling us it's real easy to get information from the USDA. Try it sometime. Okay, I don't have to tell you that overbreeding is rampant. It's out of control. The United States Humane Society estimates there's about 5,000 to 7,000 tigers in the United States alone. There are more than 15,000 big cats in private hands. Only 10% of those are in zoos and are in sanctuaries. Now, according to the ASA, and this is a testimony that was given by Tippi Hedren on June 12th, I believe, for Congress of 2003, she made a statement that there is 50,000 big cats in private hands. Either way, no matter how you look at it, these numbers are staggering, it's over the top, and I think we need to get control of the situation. And we might have a solution for that, or at least try to work towards a solution. Ultimately, the animals suffer. And the Colton Tiger Rescue Facility, I happened to be the first one on the scene after the initial bust. And this is not for the faint at heart, but I do want to show you a couple of pictures so that you get a little bit of an idea of what really is happening out there. We walked into 50 baby tigers in freezers. Okay? We've got hoofstock animals that have got hoofs that are longer than a foot and curled over. Abhorrent conditions. This is the squalor. By the way, these pictures were released to me by the district attorney of Riverside. So I've worked very close on this case and worked close with the DA as well as the police people that were involved, as well as Mike from the Fish and Game in California. These are tiger carcasses found in cages. Here you see a truckload full of tiger skins. Here you see tigers they were left because they didn't want to damage the skins. I am so angry, you guys have no idea how angry I am. Where their front paws were tied to the back of a truck waiting for them to die. Here's the evidence of that. Okay. And here's some more photographs, here's some more babies. In any event, I am almost shaking in my boots. I'm so angry about this. And, you know, we can lay the blame Mr. Weinhardt. Of course, this lowlife should have been put out of business many, many years ago. I was involved with the USDA putting him out of business 7 years earlier in Riverside. The conditions of his animals in his facility were exactly the same as what they were in Colton. Now, you tell me, what is wrong with this picture? For the city of Colton, for the USDA, for Game and Fish to allow somebody like John Weinhardt to build a tiger rescue facility on the premise of a abandoned waste treatment plant. What were they thinking? I'm talking about the cages are here, and you could throw a rock into a 100-foot across sludge pit with feces and waste in it from the leftover from the waste treatment plant. I cannot understand what the city was thinking. I cannot understand what the USDA or all of these wildlife services that do check these places out. Don't tell me that these places became like that overnight. That took years of neglect. And let me tell you, it is horrible when you see this. Now, thank God that things are being done about it. I understand that pause. By the way, Chuck Tracy from the Fund for Animals. did a wonderful job, absolutely. I got the keys turned over to myself. Of course, it wasn't easy. The police was involved, the DA was involved. We threatened him to go to jail and so on and so forth. Finally, I got the key, and then I stayed for a couple of days. We brought in some equipment. We helped out as much as we could, and then I turned it over to Chuck, who had locally, of course, a lot of people in place to take care of these poor animals. And now PAWS has taken over the animals. I understand that they raised about $300,000 to build a wonderful facility for these cats, and God bless them. So something good is being done. But you know, it's not very often that you can rescue that many big cats without the vast majority of them having to be destroyed, because there really is no room for them. There is no room for them. God, I hate it. I mean, I have so much work to do in my own sanctuary. I spend hours every single day of talking to St. people. Come on, take one more cat. Please just take one more cat. And they're full. It's really, it's horrible what's happening out there. And all of that, by the way, and that's the reason I really want to speak to you guys, because I know a lot of you very responsible. I've met a lot of you last year, and I know the breeding issue is a very sensitive issue with me. What is a good sanctuary? Well, a good sanctuary, of course, is got to be a 501c3 nonprofit, or you got to have deep pockets, but you should not have to be a 501c3. If you've got $500 million in your pockets, you don't need to be nonprofit, and then that's wonderful. No breeding, no breeding, no breeding, no breeding. If you are a sanctuary that breeds animals, you're not a sanctuary. And that's the way we look at that, okay? No buy, sell, or trade animals. No animals for commercial use, other than perhaps for your own if you have to do a commercial in order to raise funds in-house. Or as Brian said, in his particular case, he had one cat for the university that he is able to take this cat off the premise for educational purposes that, you know, of course, is acceptable. Unless, let me see, to provide, of course, one of the main things is to provide and I must underline this word, a clean housing facility, shelter and shading, provide proper nutrition and medical care, and lots of love, of course. That is our definition of a sanctuary. Now, I've been, Tina and I have been over the cross country, and we've seen, we always make a point if we have to go somewhere for whatever reason it is, if there's a sanctuary in the neighborhood or if there's a zoo in the neighborhood, we'll go check it out. Well, I've looked and visited a lot of sanctuaries, and let me tell you something, whether you are an accredited sanctuary, both, or a non-accredited sanctuary, I've seen appalling conditions in both, and I've also seen appalling conditions in people that weren't what they call a so-called accredited sanctuary. So the key word to me is, are you a credible sanctuary, not necessarily accredited? And the reason I say that is because it shouldn't matter whether you have 200 animals on your property or you have 1 or 2 animals on your property. If you rescue that animal, you should be considered a sanctuary, and you should be treated with respect accordingly. And not, thank you, and not because you're not a big operation, do you fall by the wayside and people look down on you. And a lot of that is happening, by the way. Different associations. I've also looked in different associations, and which would include TAOS, ASA, the Fund for Animals, PAWS, ACE, including the USDA and Game and Fish Department of Wildlife. They're all financially have problems. They're all understaffed, including the USDA. Ask them, they'll tell you. And they don't have the budget to work with that we would like them to have. So I found that they also, of course, all have financial problems and many, many other problems. So consequently, it is very limited what the associations can do for you as a sanctuary, if anything at all. So what I have come up with is perhaps a solution or the beginning of a solution to a huge problem. Now, Keepers of the Wild has been getting an awful lot of media attention. We still are. I don't know if you've seen some of this stuff on national television. We've got Reader's Digest coming out, wide variety of stuff. Well, along with that goes, of course, a lot of people inquire and make inquiries and say, well, you know, you're a big sanctuary, this, that, one thing and the other. What do I do? And so consequently, we were getting a tremendous amount of questions from people that had the right things in mind, that wanted to start a sanctuary, or that perhaps wanted to have a certain amount of help in a certain department in their sanctuary. Volunteer programs. How do you run a successful volunteer program, for instance, is always a key question. And people from zoos even called me. I've been in the zoo business for so many years, and this wonderful lady came to visit us not too long ago, and she'd been in the zoo business for 7 years, and she says, you know something, I've never petted a tiger in my entire life, and yet I'm a zoologist, and so on and so forth. So what we have done is very, very simple, because I have a very, very simple solution to, if you really want to help the animals, you help everybody that can help the animals. That includes other sanctuaries, that includes private individuals, no matter what it takes. So what we did is, look, if you want to learn something, if you want to know how to do this, or you want to know how to do that, get on an airplane, get on a bus, get in your car, and drive down to our facility, and come spend 2-3 weeks with us. And we'll let you do, and we'll let you work in whatever department you want to work in, and go after what it is that you're after. May it be, and I'll go through a list of those things in a minute. So, consequently, we've been doing that, and it's been very, very successful. Not only have we exchanged great ideas, because, I don't know it all, believe me. I wish I did, but I don't. And so there's a lot of people out there that had good ideas. And so we exchanged ideas and enriched, my life, and hopefully we did something for theirs as well. And the nice part about it is at absolutely no cost to them. So we made a lot of friends doing that. So we went a step further. I talked to my board of directors, and because of lots of people have good ideas and have a wonderful, warm heart for animals and want to help, they just don't know how. So what I wanted to do is introduce to you today, and I'd like to have your feedback on this. We wanted to introduce the International Sanctuary Association, or better known as the ISA. And I'm going to tell you exactly what that is. It's not like any other sanctuary association, because this is with a little bit different twist. And so first of all, Keepers of the Wild right now is under construction. We're building phase 1. As you well know, I used to be located here in Las Vegas. And since I only got $100 from Caesar's Palace, I got a little discouraged, to tell you the truth. And not only that, is to try to open a sanctuary in this city is extremely political, and not as only is it political, land is extremely expensive. And so the next best thing, thanks to a friend of mine, we ran across a piece of property which was only $100,000 an acre, a little bit further out of town, just on the other side of Hoover Dam, and that's where we are today. Well, currently we're building phase 1 of our animal park, which encumbers 9 habitats, each habitat being approximately 1 1/4 acre to 3.5 acres each. Each habitat will not house more than 2 to 4 cats. So we're talking about large areas at a cost of $8 million, by the way. Phase 2 hopefully will start within about a year or a year and a half from now. And I would like to read directly from the business plan as to what it is that we're trying to do, and I think how we can help everybody in the industry, if I may. The net profits generated from the operations of phase 1 should exceed about $4 million per year. With these funds, we will support the most ambitious animal sanctuary training and development program ever conceived through our soon-to-be-formed International Sanctuary Association, which incidentally has already been formed. It has been said that if you want to help, rather than providing fish for people to eat, teach them how to fish. And that's what we're going to try to do. I'm not going to go through the statistics. We already went through that earlier. The abundance of these magnificent creatures has resulted in the most disgusting conduct of some animal handlers, using the animals in canned hunts and for sale for their skins and body parts. We must stop this abhorrent conduct. Incidentally, that I could trace, there's about 300 canned hunts in this country. I've been told there's as many as 1,000 canned hunts in this country. I don't know if any of you know what a canned hunt is. Where you can shoot a tiger for a fee, or any other animal for that matter. Through the ISA membership program, we will assist individuals interested in opening and operating new sanctuaries, as well as assisting those interested in improving their existing sanctuaries, all free of charge. In doing so, we will establish the most effective protection system for our beloved animals in the shortest period of time possible. Throughout the United States and internationally, by the way, our teachings will help the members understand the systems necessary to for the success of an animal sanctuary operation both financially and in the best interest of the animals it provides for. Our education center, which is approximately 20,000 square feet, that is right now on the drawing board, will include a state-of-the-art animal hospital with observation rooms, also animal quarantine and recovery area, classrooms, libraries, and computer labs with multiple stations for research, skeletal and other exhibits, including an exhibit hall, museum, conference rooms, library, etc., etc. Our educational program will be geared towards providing useful information not only on the handling of animals, but also on how to structure and run a successful facility. We intend to target the specifics of what it means to be a true sanctuary and address the topics of information and that are generally not available. Our curriculum of topics will include the following. I'm going to give you a little bit of a list of what it takes to run a sanctuary and the things that are going to be available to you to be able to perhaps learn or learn more about. Of course, the sanctuary defined, which is great standards for a sanctuary. The legal issues: how to set up a nonprofit corporation, how to set up bylaws, how to apply for a 501c3 status, how to set up a board of directors and conduct board meetings, how to prepare for local, state, and governing bodies for zoning, licensing requirements, i.e. Fish and Game, USDA, town board meetings, county commission hearings, et cetera, et cetera. Believe me, I had a lot of county commission hearings. My Lord. The handling of government inspectors, such as the USDA inspectors and others, insurance requirements. Business and accounting, departmentalizing, setting up offices, setting up a website, communication systems, accounting controls, very important, by the way, bookkeeping systems, record keeping, employee manuals and procedures and hiring guidelines, marketing and advertising, public relations, media publicity and how to avoid bad publicity, by the way, brochures, mailers and distribution thereof, special events, fundraisers, development of a good business plan, donations, grant writing, animal sponsorship program setup, merchandising, fundraising and benefits, staff and volunteer programs, for instance, staff requirements, how to run a successful volunteer program, staff and volunteer training, safety equipment training, staff housing, the public providing an educational information, conducting tours, safety and security, sponsorship return visitors, continuing education, and then of course we come to the wild animal husbandry, humane training techniques, hands-on or hands-off. There is some institutions that do not believe in hands-on, yet you can train an animal to have to come up to, for instance, the front of the cage so that you can give them a shot, draw blood, do whatever, other than having to knock them down. Hands-on and hands-off handling, backup training, transporting of animals, local and long distance, national, international, including rescue protocol, cleaning animal enclosures and equipment, nutritional care and feeding methods, animal medical care and a medical protocol, equipment needed and the use thereof, safety equipment and use thereof, veterinarian services and requirements, daily and weekly animal reports. Do that, by the way. I heard somebody questioning that a little bit earlier. Daily reports will save your animals, trust me. There's not an animal on our property, and that includes a little lizard, that doesn't get a report filled out each and every day. Medical record keeping, enclosure requirements and habitat design. And then last but not least, of course, we have the protocols, rules, regulations, safety procedures, emergency procedures, evacuation procedures, waivers, and communication. Operating an animal sanctuary can be a passionate, rewarding experience. Our success over the past 12 years have been an achievement of unsurpassed joy. In helping these magnificent creatures, we have helped ourselves both spiritually and emotionally. We at Keepers of the Wild will go beyond our sanctuary and reach out to the individuals and the sanctuaries in need of assistance to accomplish the huge task of rescuing and providing home for the abused, abandoned, and neglected animals. In order for the animals to be safe and secure, the owners must have knowledge, continuing education, financial responsibility, community support, and unending passion for what is right for the animals, and we can help. By the way, I did want to make one more statement, that if each person here today considers themselves to be a mini sanctuary and could help rescue just one animal, You know how many animals we could be taking care of right now? Just think about that. Anyway, that's all I have to say. And open for answers and questions in a moment. Thank you very much.
Down to the last two speakers. The next speaker, you all know Larry. Larry Wallach was a humane commissioner from New York. He has rescued animals all over the country. He's got animals in facilities all over this country, and he pays for the support of them. Larry does an excellent job. The animal, the tiger that was in the apartment, would have been dead today if it wasn't for the fact that Larry stepped in and said, we can get this animal out of this room into a safe habitat. Larry was also instrumental in getting the little baby lion, Boomerang is his name, I was trying to remember his name, Boomerang, to stay at the facility that he's at, and very proud of the fact that he did such a good job. So, without any more, wasting time, Larry Wallach.
Hi, everybody. We want to talk about solutions as private owners. I live on both sides of the fence. I'm involved in confiscations, raising, and moving the animals. But I see a lot of problems that are definitely coming. Insurance. How many people here actually have animal insurance? You should look around. Very little. So if your animal gets out and kills someone, we're going to hear about it, you're going to pay for it, we're going to pay for it. So Robin and I, with Lee, my family, we own insurance companies with AIG, have put together a program. It will be available, what month are we in? Thanks. Probably April. It'll be $1 million policy. No. Let me just tell you something from insurance. I know Mitchell. Mitchell actually does business with one of the companies we own. So I'm not going to say anything bad. I'm just going to tell you the truth. His policy's crap. It doesn't make him a bad guy. I mean, but I could sell you a glass of water with no water in it. If we're in the desert long enough, you're going to drink that empty glass. So if you're, but listen, he's a salesman. He's in business. If you read a policy, after a while, right, it's like non-existent. This policy will be written by AIG. It's easy to read. You're covered. The animal's covered. Your neighbor will be covered, even if he's in the belly of your tiger. Okay? Now, so, yes, it'll be AAA. It'll be through AIG. They're the best insurance company in this country. They're the biggest. They have the most money. Yes.
They just took over General Electric auto insurance.
Yes. But unfortunately, none of the tigers have driver's licenses. Now, let me just tell you this. Every day that we go on as animal owners, animal taker-awayers, animal anything, your rights are being taken away. Now, is it a good thing? Well, in a lot of cases it is. Because people like Jonathan said, there are people that buy animals, they can't even afford to buy them. They stick them in cages that you wouldn't leave, you wouldn't even go in it. So what happens? It makes us all look terrible. And I've seen it. You know, I'm glad you said that you're a rescuer sanctuary. In 1994, I confiscated a cougar called Hope. It was in New York City. He was 9 months old. I'm going to cry. He was 9 months old and he weighed 6 pounds. It was in Hapog, Long Island. The cat was literally walking on its chin. He moved his chin to walk. I took in Hope. I met two of the best neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, and they actually completely broke every bone of his front legs, back legs, rewired him. 10 operations later, he's 65 pounds, runs and jumps. So, to me, now a lot of people don't know me or know me. I'm liked and I'm hated. I don't care. I know what I do with the animals. This year alone, on my own dollar, with Lee, with Robin, with Kim, I've seen probably 40,000 school kids. I go to schools all over the country for free. I take baby lions, baby tigers, even full grown, and we do an educational program, and then the animals leave. I don't take one nickel. It gives me credibility, and it gives all of us credibility. Because if the animals are used to educate and to show them that they're not good pets for everyone, and I think mostly everyone, then we're doing a good job. If you don't educate the public, this room every year will have less and less people. Just will. If you don't take on the responsibility to do what Jonathan says, Brian, all of you in your minds, just like you're gonna clean the cat's litter box, but you wait 3 days. You can't wait. Right now, you have to look at it like all the animals have AIDS. Everybody. Well, if you don't start curing them, they're gonna be dead. So, next year, when you come, you need to have insurance. Not from me, in general. I'll tell you how it is. The pimple on the ass of the elephant killed the elephant. We're the pimple. We really are. We have to be able to go to the legislator and say, look what we do. We do it ass backwards. We built our place. It's safe. We have our animals legally. They're healthy. We feed them. We can afford them. You can't get in. They can't get out. Give me my license. That's how you do it. When you go forward with that, it's hard for someone to say no. You can't not have it. Why give them the opportunity to say no? So that's what I've been doing for 20 years. I am the only person within the city limits that has a tiger living in their house. It's not smart, but I do it. She has a big cage, right? She travels with me. She's not in the hotel room. Actually, she would have been, but Delta didn't have a seat. The thing was, so if you all really want to fix this, because you can all talk is cheap. We can hear from everybody. We can hear Tippy saying you shouldn't have it. We can hear saying, Larry, you should have it. But if you work together, come up with a coalition, raise money. What, Rob? What fun? What fund? Oh, fund. You're talking money. Okay. If everyone here, and I have, I don't want to name the company I own, because I don't want a lot of people nudging me. Nudge, anybody know what nudge means? That's all right. I know I nudged my mother when she was playing canasta. I can't live it down. If we all got together and got money, and I would be willing to put up $20,000 or $25,000 to start the fund. If we did that, and everybody gave money, and we hired an international law firm, I don't mean international, one of the biggest firms in the United States, which I have access to, and say, you need to fight for us. We need to lobby. I'm pretty sure I can get people that would floor you, who they are, to give us their ear. But I'm not going looking like a schmuck. Can't do it. So, excuse me, I hate talking in front of people. If I hide. Okay. So here's the thing. If you all work together somebody start raising money, we go to this law firm and we say, can you fight for us? Because we don't want to be the guys that lose all our hard work, the love of our labors. I don't know how you all got started. I'm going to tell you a little story. When I was 4 years old, I was paralyzed from the neck down. It's called brachial plexus neuritis. When I was 7, I was paralyzed again. When I was 11, and then when I was 40. I had a dog, now 3. They didn't live 40 years. And if they did, I'd have to tell you it was because of Oasis. So my parents, who grew up on the Lower East Side of New York, and then my dad, we have the 7th largest company in New York. I will tell you, my best friend was my dog. Not that I didn't love my parents, but my dog stayed with me every day, every night. So I began to love animals. No sheep, just animals. So that's how I got into it. Now, if you guys all want to stay in and really keep your animals, make it better, let's all get together. Let's do this correctly. Let's take on the enemy and hit them from behind so they didn't know what they saw. You know, they didn't see it coming. That's it. Thanks.
Barry Needleman is going to talk again today about, he's an animal science major, a computer consultant. He's talking about something that is very important, something that we need to consider very seriously, and that is peer accreditation. Barry Needleman.
I just want to thank all the other great speakers that we've had, and I think we ought to give them a great hand because this has been an incredibly informational session, and I think that everybody has done a great job. Okay, my presentation is going to be concerning the peer certification system that some of you have heard about. This is really a follow-up to a lot of the presentations we've heard today concerning about responsibility of exotic owners and how do we make sure that everybody is a responsible owner. And I've been looking forward to presenting to the Phoenix membership a project that was started just over 6 months ago. The project kicked off following a post I sent to the Phoenix e-group asking this: why don't exotic owners have a self-certification system like the AZA and ASA? Jeannie Hall then emailed me and asked me if I would be willing to take on the task of building a checklist system to begin the self-certification process. I agreed, and I'm pleased to introduce to you today an overview of the project to date. I'd like to thank Jeannie, Vicki, David Holt, and all the others who provided valuable input to this stage of the project. Before I present the project itself, I'd like to say a few words about one of the key reasons we are here, which is the bond between exotic animals and ourselves. People outside our circle don't understand these bonds and their importance to us. In fact, many out there believe it a mortal sin for non-domestic animals to bond with humans. But I ask, where is it conclusively and scientifically proven that an animal with a presence in the wild can't have a presence in our homes? I haven't found it. At least I haven't found it outside the ideological statements of the radical ARs and uninformed statements of public officials in the media. Unfortunately, there's also been scant research on the bonds between exotics and humans. Research on this would be very useful to us. So then, when talking about the specific bonds between ourselves and exotics, we are talking about something that is intense, deep, and certainly unique. Now, I don't want to give the impression that bonds with domestic animals are a lower class, but obviously they're not as unique. So why are we exotic owners? Because of what they have to offer us with these bonds, and what we have to offer them, which is health, security, and companionship. The public must learn. When we live with exotics, we are not in any way causing them to suffer. If having these animals in our company caused them pain, caused them to suffer, they'd reject us. They're not stupid. They know what they want, and they know who they are, and they know who we are. But they accept us and give us back their affection. What more proof is needed that they enjoy our company? So I ask you to give careful thought as to why we love these animals and why they love us back. I feel if we don't start articulating this relationship in detail, accurately, and with conviction, we will continue to face resistance from the public and others. Now, to preserve these unique bonds, we must use every tool possible to fight bans and ensure that all those who decide to take on the challenge of caring for exotics have the ability to do so. And so that's where this new project comes in. We have all heard the horror stories of abused animals, of animals and people who have been hurt or killed. Why does this happen? There are many reasons, but one of the most obvious is lack of owner training. And when these incidents happen, all owners get lumped together with the perception that they are all unskilled. And why shouldn't the public feel that way? There are currently no way for anyone to know if an individual is really ready to own exotics, no way to separate the good owners from the bad. This project will play a critical part in dealing with public and government objections concerning the keeping of exotic animals in private hands. To offset some of these objections, I'm introducing a system to certify that current owners and potential owners are well equipped to deal with the responsibilities and issues of raising exotic animals. So what does a peer certification provide to us? First, it's one way to help assure the one thing we are most concerned about, which is that all exotic animals get the very best care. Also, it is a counter-argument to the lack of skills objection, and it's a counter-argument to those macho and compulsive buyer objections that we always hear about. It provides a pool of certified skilled people to educate the public and mentor new and potential owners. And it proves to the public that these people do it right, they are accountable and responsible. Now, it is important to point out that this will not make a non-animal person a good caretaker, nor will it prevent every possibility of abuse. To put it bluntly, idiots are going to be idiots and will ignore good advice. However, for those that participate honestly, this system will provide a path to exotic owner excellence. One other extremely important point about this peer certification system: it is entirely voluntary. If you feel it is not worthwhile for you, there is no requirement to participate. We're not a licensing organization. Also, it should be made clear, and this is extremely important, that this is only one part of an overall strategy to protect our rights as exotic owners, and by itself will not stave off bans. Okay then. So there's going to be two stages in building our peer certification system. First, there are the checklists, and second will be on-site peer inspections, which I'll talk about shortly. Now, one way to think of the checklist is that of a readiness test. Anyone considering exotic ownership can use these checklists in a way to see if they really have considered all the issues, and will give one a good idea of the gaps in one's thinking. Now, to start, there are three basic lists. First, an owner checklist for those interested in keeping exotic owners strictly as pets. Then there's an exhibitor list for those that want to show their animals in public. And finally, a breeder checklist for anyone interested in breeding exotics. There will also be species-specific lists. Today I'll show you a model tiger list. There's also a cougar checklist right now available online. Okay, take a moment here and get our data show warmed up. And I'm going to be showing you the mission statement. Now, this will be the first page that somebody will see if they decide they want to go through the checklists and they want to go through the checklist certification process. Just to let you know that these checklists will be online, and I also have some hard copies, so if anybody is not online, I can give you a hard copy if you need it. Also, the way this system is going to work, there will be a database online, and that people will have to log into the system, and it'll be password protected. So I want to assure everybody that if you want to go through the checklist system, that all of the entries that are entered there will be confidential and secure. Okay. we're probably going to have a little bit of a problem here with the stretch of the page, but at least this will give you a good idea of what's going on. All right, this is our check. This is the mission statement. And I'm just going to point out a few of the statements here that really point out what the whole checklist system is all about. First of all, we say, since some people take on the responsibility of exotic ownership without understanding the implications of their decision, this checklist was developed to assess the readiness of an individual to be a successful animal owner. And also I'd like to point out this statement. Unlike domestic animals, it is easy to make care and handling mistakes that can cost the life of a beloved pet or injure people. Also, unlike domestic animals, there are many extra laws governing ownership of exotics. If you neglect this, you could lose an animal to the authorities. Of course, one would think that in this day of loud animal abolitionists running around everywhere, that would be obvious. But there are many owners out there that put themselves, their animals, and us at risk. This, of course, is one of the key reasons for the entire checklist concept. Okay, let's bring up the owner checklist. Okay, well, I want to point out one other thing here. As you see, it says alpha version. This version is still very, very, very much under development. And that's why I'm hoping that after I get done with this presentation and while I'm here with the whole group, that I will get lots of feedback. I just want to point out that so far I got 1 page of changes that are going to be made to the checklist system, just based on what I've heard so far in the presentations. I'd like to have lots more pages like this. So, the owner page is broken down into 4 sections. There's a legal section, there's enclosures and security, contingency planning and husbandry. And very pertinent questions are asked in each section, such as in legal, have you acquired your needed permits? In enclosures and security, have you built proper enclosures? In contingency, something that I think everybody should be trained in, do you have tranquilizing equipment? Do you know how to use it? And finally, in husbandry, do you have a way to protect your food supply? Do you have generation equipment to protect your freezers? Now, as you can see, there's way too many individual requirements for all species we covered. For the specifics, we can go to the species list. Now, this is our tiger checklist. The plan is to have as many of these checklists as possible. The species checklists are really an expansion of the basic list, adding information that is important to each. This is not to say, of course, that the checklist will be as comprehensive as, let's say, a care sheet, but that's not their function, really. Their function should be, their function should be thought of as guidelines. Now, mind you, just by listening to the presentations, a lot of these guidelines are probably going to be changed because every time I hear something new from somebody, some of these statements, become obsolete. But I'd like to point out, to start with, the recommendations we have on training. And mind you, this is for tigers, so the training that I'm showing here is pretty stringent, and a lot of this is based on the Florida regulations. And here it says that you should have at least 1,000 hours of care, husbandry, and handling of tigers, including time spent volunteering in facilities. That's going to change, of course, based on how much other experience you have. But I mean, it would certainly be worthwhile to have people come to this checklist with thinking, well, I want to go out and buy a tiger cub. Wouldn't that be a great thing? Well, what do I have to do? And really what I'd like somebody to do is to come to these checklists and before they even acquire an animal and look at that and say, wow, they think that I should have 1,000 hours training. You mean I can't just go right out to the local pet store and pick up an animal and I'll just have all the knowledge I want? After all, I raised a pussycat, right? Wrong. That's the type of people that we want to look at this checklist and say, wow, maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I don't meet the requirements for handling one of these animals. So that's the specification we have for for handling. Okay, perimeter fencing. Again, we have some very, very specific recommendations as far as what you need for perimeter fencing. 8 feet in height with a 2-foot angled overhang, which I think is a really good idea, and should be constructed of a gauge suitable for the strength of a tiger. I'm going to add that that should be chain link only. And okay, going on to dietary requirements. In my own personal experience, when people who are not experienced exotic owners get an exotic cat, tigers or servals or what have you, they go down to the local pet store and they buy whatever stuff they have there with no understanding that these animals have different requirements than their domestic animals. So here I have put down some actual recommendations. Again, I think that this is probably going to change pretty quickly as I get more information. But at least, even in its current form, this would give people an idea that you don't want to treat your exotic animal like it was a domestic cat or dog or so forth. All right then. So here's how the checklist system will work. You check all this, you log into the system, you get a password, you're going to get an ID so that anything that you have would be just specific to you and will be secure. And you check off the statements in the pertinent checklists that fit your current facility. In the end, unchecked statements are areas that you need to consider. Of course, it's quite possible that a particular statement may not apply to your specific operation. You know, if you have real small cats, maybe you don't need to have this type of facility. So at the end of the checklist, let's just roll that all the way down to the bottom. There's a comment section where you can fill out some details about your specific requirements and facilities. Okay. Now, how the checklists are going to be employed. Right now, it's in alpha mode, which means that it's a draft. We'll have a beta trial going out pretty soon as I've compiled all the information I've received from this meeting. One will be able to go up to the site, be able to get your ID, be able to fill out the pertinent checklists, and they'll be put onto the database. Then later, once we have a inspection committee and certification committee, then we'll give an official certificate of approval that will be reviewed by the inspection committee. Okay, that's the overview of the checklist system. All right, now stage 2 of the peer certification process will be on-site inspections. Now, details of this are being worked out right now, and I hope that it'll be operational relatively soon. However, as many have pointed out, this is a tricky process. The politics are going to be interesting, and for this project, the details will require careful consideration. But those details need to be addressed if we are to use this as one of our tools to fight bans. But I truly believe we have an opportunity to put something together worthwhile and effective. Okay, here's some of the current highlights of the peer inspection process. There will be an inspection committee. It will consist of 5 members who are responsible for the entire certification process, both checklists and on-site inspections. This committee will also be responsible for creating the procedures, both for the committee itself and for the inspectors. The committee will also recruit inspectors and oversee their compliance with inspection procedures. Applicants will pay for the inspector's visit, but there hopefully will be regional inspectors to keep expenses to a minimum. There will be a grievance and appeal process, and inspectors will be chosen for a particular inspection based on expertise with species involved and geographical location. So we're not going to send somebody who is an expert in, let's say, cockatoos and have them inspect a tiger facility. Not going to happen. Applicants will have the right to request another inspector if they feel uncomfortable with the person assigned. Of course, they will need to provide a good reason for such a request. And then when a facility passes inspection, they'll provide with official certification from Phoenix Exotics, and there will be perks to go along with that. That'll come later. Of course, that just skims the surface of the peer certification process. There's a lot more work that needs to be done, of course, but it is moving forward. If you have any suggestions, comments, flames, doesn't matter, please feel free to track me down. I mean, I am willing to hear any and every piece of input I can get because, people, this is your system. I don't want to be the one that is going to be dictating to everybody. I want this to be everybody's system. So if you feel that there's something that isn't right or you don't agree with something, that's great. Let me know. And here's the URL for the Alpha site. Feel free to go up there and check it out. I also have a dedicated email address for anything having to do with the peer certification process. Please feel free to email me on that. I'll be more than happy to respond to any and all requests for information. Okay, that's it, folks. It's your system. Let me know what you want, and I'll set it up. Thank you.
We've been asked that Judy, I'm going to ruin this last name, Giselle, did I get that right? She's from Animal Capture Equipment. She's brought her equipment out here. We're going to give her just a few minutes before we start the question and answer period, and she's going to come up and say a few things. So, Judy, come on up.
First, I want to clarify one of the things. When I was asking the guy from the USDA about the information, is I want to know what the next step is for you guys to do. What can facilitate the communication between all of you? If anybody thought something else, I'm sorry, that's really what I was trying to do. The other thing I wanted to answer is you have solutions. We have a solution for sanitation. A lot of the facilities that you sanctuaries are going into, you have to quarantine these animals. You don't know what kind of disease these animals hold. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. And you don't want to cross-contaminate to your other animals, the healthy animals. We have a system, it's a chlorination system that is hazmat approved against HIV, anthrax, almost everything besides mad cow disease. There's nothing known to kill that yet. That is available to you for a couple $100. It's about $1.50 a run per day, and it has had USDA approval, FDA approval. It will not harm the environment. It's EPA approved. Something for all of you that, if you want to care for your animals and you have any animals, any kind of problem, this is going to kill the kind of thing to spread the disease. So I have a solution for you, and that was the only thing I wanted to say. So 5 seconds, that's it.